A tentacled creature of unknown origin destroys over 70% of the moon, and he announces that he will destroy the world in 1 year. Nonetheless, Ministry of Defense government worker Tadami Karasuma allows the creature to be the teacher of Class 3E. The students are given weapons specifically designed to hurt the creature and are offered a reward of 10 billion yen to whoever can assassinate him before graduation. It all begins in Class E3, where a seemingly depressed classroom awaits with uncertainty the arrival of their teacher. The teacher arrives in the schoolyard and the students prepare to greet him, and as soon as they see him enter the classroom, they greet him as we are taught in public school, by shooting him. However, the teacher is not only so used to this that he is able to dodge everything at superhuman speed, but while doing so, he takes the class attendance and is happy to see that no one has arrived late. This leaves the students speechless, as their teacher humiliated them again. To encourage them, he tells them that they must be original and disruptive to succeed in taking him down, and although one of them tries to excuse himself by saying that those BB guns are useless, the professor tells him that those BB guns are specially designed by the government to take him down, and does not hesitate to give him a demonstration of it. Then he wishes them luck so they can finish him off before graduation, and tells them that the class is about to start, so he asks them not to use the guns on each other. Later, while the smiling professor is teaching his class, Nagisa, the class leader, who although she looks like a waifu is a man, sees the moon and begins to remember something. A flashback reveals that a few months ago, the media put society on alert by telling them that a creature had destroyed 70% of the moon in an instant. Days later, the government gathered the students of Class 3E to introduce them to Koro, the creepy creature responsible for the destruction of the moon. One of the government agents explains to them that Koro not only destroyed the moon, but that he plans to destroy the entire Earth the following year if they fail to assassinate him. He further reveals to them that it was Koro who gave them that time frame and asked them to be the Class 3E in charge of trying to take him down. He even asked to be allowed to be the class teacher. The reward for completing the mission is 10 billion yen, as it is literally about saving the world. Back in the present, Koro-sensei sees that it is lunchtime and tells his class that he will be traveling to China to buy some tofu, so the class estimates that it will take less than 10 minutes. Nagisa can't stop thinking about how strange it all is, since Koro is an amazing teacher who was able to help them improve their grades a lot, and has even committed to being with them after class, even though they try to take him by surprise to kill him. The class is literally a bunch of losers and outcasts, and they know it. So a small group of them organize a plan to take Koro down. They know that Koro's face changes color according to his feelings, and information is more than valuable to elaborate an effective plan that has Nagisa as the protagonist. During the class, Nagisa approaches Koro as invisible as always to ask him questions related to the exam, but without him noticing that she is carrying a knife behind the blade. However, the knife was nothing more than a facade for Koro to concentrate on dodging the attack, without realizing that Nagisa was literally carrying out a kamikaze attack with a grenade in her necklace. This plan had been planned by the three who met Nagisa, as the grenade was filled with special pellets and a small pinch of gunpowder to damage Koro without causing much damage to Nagisa. However, Koro noticed everything and evaded the attack, but not before protecting Nagisa with his old skin. This infuriated him, so he threatened the students to finish off their family members if they don't stop wasting their time with questionable methods, although he ends up congratulating Nagisa for having the best attempt of the class so far. This makes Nagisa happy, as she finally feels that someone appreciates the group's effort and doesn't look down on them. Days later, while Koro was reading the newspaper in the schoolyard, Sugina and Nagisa try to take him by surprise by throwing a baseball full of special pellets at him. Logically, Koro dodges this as if it were a game and appears from behind the children, congratulating them for their excellent and stealthy plan, but that thanks to his speed, he had enough time even to go and get a baseball glove to take the ball in his hands, so Sugina gets frustrated. Later, Koro announces to the class that they will finish early, as he will be traveling to New York to watch a baseball game. During his absence, members of the Ministry of Defense take advantage of the moment to interview the students in the class for useful information, though they only believe that taking down someone capable of breaking the sound barrier is impossible. The next day, during lunch, Sugina is surprised by Koro, who not only gives him back his ball, but also congratulates him on his throw, as well as asking him if he is a member of any team. Sugino answers him that he used to be in one, but he was not a good pitcher, so he got depressed and stopped studying, which is why he was sent to Class E and can no longer join any team, due to the fact that he is forced to improve his grades. Meanwhile, Nagisa watches them through the window and goes over to see what's going on, but is left open-mouthed when she sees that Koro is using his tentacles to wrap around Sugino's body from all sides. Koro tells Sugino that he has noticed the way he imitates a professional player named Arati, but not to keep doing it, as his shoulder muscles are not as strong as Arati's, so he won't be able to be like him. He also shows them that he has gone to the match exclusively to inspect Arati with his tentacles. This bothers Nagisa, as he can see the sadness on Sugino's face. But Koro changes the expression on their faces by mentioning that Sugino has more flexible wrists and elbows than Arati, so he will be able to surpass Arati if he puts his mind to it and trains hard enough. Nagisa sees the happiness on Sugino's face and can't help but go after Koro to ask him why he is such a good teacher, to which he replies bluntly that he became his teacher because of a promise. Plus, he takes his job so seriously that he even went to New York just to use his tentacles on Arati. Days later, Nagisa sees how much Sugino has improved in his pitching, plus he's motivated not only for baseball but to succeed in taking down Koro. Meanwhile, Karasuma, one of the government agents, reports to the principal to inform him that he is about to leave for Class 3E to begin his duties as a physical education teacher. As he leaves, he sees how much the students of the elite academy despise and mock Class 3E, so he understands that this academic structure was created to encourage effort and competitiveness among the students, even though it is highly discriminatory. When Karasuma arrives at the school to introduce himself as the new gym teacher, he finds that the students are having a twisted time trying to take down Koro, and that he is enthusiastically teaching them assassination techniques. This surprises Karasuma, as it is clear that these students are truly happy learning how to assassinate their teacher. Meanwhile, the directors of the elite academy give one of their students confidential information about Koro, as he will be transferred to Class 3E along with all the losers. Karasuma teaches the gym class alongside Koro until he tells her that it's his duty to do it himself and without anyone's help, so Koro has no choice but to go hang out somewhere else. The students admit that it feels good to be taught by a human teacher with physical characteristics like theirs, since Koro wanted to teach them things they were unable to imitate. In addition, Karasuma shows them that he has tremendous combat skills, so the students are enthusiastic to learn. At the end of the class, Nagisa meets Karma, the new transfer student, whom he apparently already knows. Karma approaches Koro-sensei to greet him, and is greeted in a friendly manner, but Karma's greeting shatters Koro's tentacles, as he had placed anti-Koro material on his hands. Karma then begins to intimidatingly humiliate Koro, which sets his classmates' expectations sky high. So Nagisa explains that Karma was transferred to Class E because of his violent and cynical behavior. During class, the students see how much the situation affected Koro, as he is like a sad child who was punished. Karma hands in his exam and begins to eat ice cream, so Koro draws his attention to it and is furious to see that this is the ice cream that Koro brought exclusively from Italy. When he tries to take it from him, he falls into a trap set by Karma and is once again humiliated in front of the whole class. The next day, Koro arrives in class to find his students very upset. He instantly notices that there is a dead octopus on his desk, so he knows Karma is behind this. Karma tells him that he will first kill its spirit slowly until it dies inside. But Koro moves at supersonic speed and tells him that he can try all day if he wants. Literally, Koro tries to kill him over and over again in every class, but Koro not only prevents each of his attempts, but provokes him more and more. In the afternoon, Karma and Nagisa meet outside the school, and Nagisa tries to convince him that killing Koro is an impossible task, let alone if he tries to do it alone and without help. A flashback reveals that Karma was very close to one of his teachers, but Koro interrupts his memories by saying that he is eager to continue educating Karma. Upon hearing this, Karma has the most twisted and brilliant idea yet, to throw himself off the cliff for Koro to save him. As Karma fell, he began to remember the day he lost the trust and affection he felt for his favorite teacher, as he realized that the teacher didn't really appreciate him, but only took advantage of him to further boost his teaching career. However, Karma's attempt is thwarted by Koro, who saves his student without exposing himself to murder. After this, Karma realizes that Koro really cares for his students, since he risked slightly to be killed by him in order to save him. Days later, Koro goes to the store to buy some things, and on his way out, he finds some thugs harassing a waifu. Koro doesn't hesitate to help her and puts the men in their place, for which the waifu thanks her with much emotion and asks her if she knows how to get to Class 3E. Later, Karasuma introduces the waifu in front of the whole class, as she will be the new foreign language teacher. Everyone in the class is left open-mouthed at the sight of her, not only because of her beauty, but because she is all over Koro, as if she is obsessed with him. Nagisa notices a new weakness in Koro. He is as human as anyone else when he is with a waifu. However, she suspects that this waifu is much more than just an English teacher. Later, his suspicions are confirmed, as the waifus meets Karasuma, and Karasuma is astonished to meet face-to-face the famous S-class assassin Irina Jelovich, who speaks more than 12 languages perfectly and is able to infiltrate the riskiest missions. After this, Irina bursts into the schoolyard to seduce Koro and ask him to bring her a coffee from Vietnam. Obviously, Koro is as sympathetic as you and me, so he leaves immediately, and the students immediately discover Irina's true identity, as she tells them that she doesn't intend to teach them anything. Moreover, she quickly demonstrates that she is not interested in anything other than fulfilling her goal, as she is not the least bit interested in fulfilling her task as a teacher. In fact, he kisses Nagisa in front of everyone and explains that he will do the same to those who have information about Koro. She then introduces her right-hand men, who are none other than the alleged stalkers from the beginning. During class, Irina literally only thinks about how to kill Koro and recalls the information Nagisa gave her about Koro, mainly the fact that Koro has an incredible sense of smell despite having no nose. The students demand attention from their teacher, but the teacher detracts them, causing anger among the youngsters. During the afternoon, the students see Koro and Irina leave the courtyard to go to the storage room, so they take the opportunity to complain about her to Karasuma. However, Karasuma tells them that she was chosen by the government thanks to her great ability. All this is explained while Irina seduces Koro very provocatively to make him slowly fall into a trap. Trying to take him by surprise, Irina's men rain a hail of bullets on Koro, but although the attack seemed to be a success, they didn't even manage to muss his hair, and Koro enjoyed humiliating the waifu, just as he does with those who try to assassinate him. The students see all this, so Irina feels even more humiliated. During the class, she detracts the students and tells them that she doesn't care one bit what is going to happen to their grades, since if they are in Class 3E, it's because they are losers. After this, the students boo her and throw things at her to make her quit. Karasuma sees this and tries to make Irina reflect by taking her to the schoolyard to see how dedicated Koro is to his work, as he literally takes the time to write exams according to each student's strengths and weaknesses to empower them more and more. He also shows her how much fun the students are having during gym class, as well as getting stronger and stronger in their skills. Irina reflects, and the next day she gives her best in her classes, apologizing to her students and committing herself to teach them not only to speak English, but to learn any language through seduction, which leaves the students bewildered. A few days later, the students of Class 3E learn to extract and distill colors with Koro-sensei, but Okuda surprises the entire class by asking their teacher to please consume the poisons she prepared with dedication. Against all the students' odds, Koro agrees and takes each of the poisons without suffering severe consequences. To encourage the shy girl, Koro asks her to stay after class to make a poison that can kill him, and she takes advantage of the class to explain that it is not easy for her to socialize with others, let alone kill someone. So Koro gives her an exact recipe to make a deadly poison for him. The next day, Okuda comes to class with great enthusiasm and explains to his classmates everything that happened the day before. Okuda gives the concoction to his teacher, and he takes it without any problems. But contrary to what everyone expected, Koro acquires a new power and is able to change his state. After this, he tells Okuda that she will be an incredible scientist in the future, but for that she must learn to express herself in words in the best possible way, and she must not allow anyone to take advantage of her naivety and kindness. Days later, the students of Class 3E leave the school to begin a long trek through the forest. An animation tells that Class 3E is so far away from the city to avoid affecting the performance of the best students. Once a month, they must descend from the mountain, overcoming various adversities to reach the elite academy and witness an assembly where they are looked down upon, as they have discovered that people develop more when they have someone to trample on. Despite all the attempts to belittle the students of Class 3E, they don't even flinch. On the contrary, they enjoy themselves. In fact, the happiness of Class 3E makes the elite students uncomfortable and makes them envious, as everyone is very attractive in Class 3E, even the teachers. At the end of the assembly, a group of students try to bully Nagisa, but Nagisa leaves them in check by responding to them in an intimidating manner. Meanwhile, an academy manager watches from above in disgust, as he is not pleased that his most promising students are feeling envious of a group of failures. Upon returning to school, Koro multiplies his teaching efforts 1,000-fold, moving at such an incredible speed that he seems to be able to have a clone to teach each of his students one-on-one. At the end of class, Koro returns to the teacher's lounge and meets Gakuho Asuno, the academy's principal. Karasuma introduces the principal with much respect, but the principal immediately begins to intimidate Koro by explaining that he does not intend to dissolve the E-class, since with that structure he ensures that the students are highly effective. So he tries to explain his point of view with an analogy about ants. Before leaving, he explicitly tells Koro that he wants the E-class to continue to have lousy grades, since in order for 95% of the students to be elite, it is necessary for 5% to be mediocre and despised. The next day, Koro tries even harder to teach and moves at an absurd speed, even falling to the ground dead from exhaustion. But when he hears one of his students mention that it is ridiculous to try so hard for a couple of losers, he becomes enraged and asks them all to go out to the courtyard. Once there, he asks Irina and Karasuma to explain if everything always goes as planned when they do their work. All this is to make the students understand that they cannot settle for the idea of getting paid 10 million yen for killing him and never having to do anything again, as that plan may turn out badly for them and they will have no plan B on which to persevere. Furthermore, he threatens to quit teaching if they are not able to make it into the top 50, as this way they will be promoted and shut the mouths of all those who underestimated them. The next day, the students of Class E make their best efforts during the exams, but these are really difficult, as they are designed to fail, so they get demotivated and start to give up little by little. However, they remember Koro's teachings, and little by little they manage to pass each of the exercises with great determination. But at the end of the exam, a very difficult question puzzles them. The next day, Karasuma calls the Ministry of Education to file a complaint, since the exam was completely different from what had been announced. But they mockingly explain to him that everyone knew about it except them, since the director himself prepared the exams. Koro is depressed by this, but Karma approaches him and presents him with his exam, showing him that despite everything, he passed. He then encourages Koro and the whole class to shut the others' mouths. Days later, the E-class students are informed that they will have a school trip, so they start making groups. During gym class, Karasuma explains to them that they will have to take advantage of the trip to assassinate Koro, as some elite snipers will also be helping. Nagisa makes a group with Karma, Okuda, Sugino, Kayano, and Kansaki, a waifu who is very popular in the class. Koro arrives on the scene at that time and hands them each some guides he wrote himself about all kinds of information needed for a school trip. During the trip, the Lolas step aside for a moment to buy snacks on the train and run into a bully who takes the itinerary that fell out of Kansaki's backpack. Later, while resting at the inn that the academy rented for them, Kansaki notices that he lost his itinerary, and they have no choice but to use the guidebooks that Koro wrote for them. During the walk, the group tours all of Kyoto just as it was on the itinerary, so they observe every tourist spot in the place that could be useful for them to learn more about assassinations. However, they are intercepted by the group of thugs in an alley, and Karma takes advantage of the moment to kick the crap out of some of them. Obviously, he can't beat them all, and the thugs end up kidnapping Kansaki and Kayano. After this, the youngsters discover that Koro wrote a list of steps to follow in case something like this happened, so they set off to save the lolis. Meanwhile, the thugs extort money from the waifus, and one of them discovers that Kansaki is someone he had already tried to kidnap once because he thought she was pretty. Kansaki explains that she never tried to look like someone from high society, so she concentrated so hard on disguising it that she dropped her grades noticeably and was transferred to E-class. The bullies slightly empathize with her, so they tell her that she can join them to show the high society people that they are scum. At that moment, the rest of the group arrives using Koro's guidebook, as it said that a not-so-large group would not mobilize too far from the kidnapping location. As if Koro's guide was not enough, He himself arrives just in time to teach the thugs a lesson, and not only because of the beating he gave them, but also because he teaches them that what others say about them is their opinion and not reality, so they should not spend their lives holding grudges against others and trying to get even. After this, the group goes on their way again as if nothing had happened. Meanwhile, Karasuma meets with an elite sniper named Red-Eye to brief him about the mission. The E-class students are communicating with the sniper, so they devise a plan to take out Koro during the ride. Obviously, the first of the attempts fails and the sniper realizes Koro's enormous skills. This is repeated over and over again throughout the day, as Koro literally survives every single attempt as if it were child's play. Because of this, the sniper leaves the mission, but during the night he personally meets Koro, who invites him to dinner and thanks him for making his students improve as assassins, as they carried out great intelligence work to give Red-Eye the best possible scenario. On the last day of the trip, the students gather in their rooms to have typical teenage conversations. The boys make a tier list of beautiful girls and we learn about each of the possible romances, mainly that of Nagisa and Kayano. Unbeknownst to them, Koro spies on them and steals the information, as she loves to gossip. He does the same with the girls, who listened attentively to Irina's stories, so they all start chasing him everywhere trying to kill him. Koro takes refuge next to Karasuma, who asks him if he had an affair. At that moment, Koro alludes that he was once human, but Karasuma does not want to bother him anymore and stops asking questions. Upon returning from the trip, the students learn that they will have a new classmate in the class, so they begin to get their hopes up when they see a picture of her. However, when they enter the class, they realize that she is an artificial intelligence. After being introduced in front of everyone, the class begins normally. Just a few moments later, the artificial intelligence begins to attack Koro with a huge arsenal of weapons, which causes chaos in the classroom and leaves everyone with their mouths open, since one of her attacks managed to hit. As the days go by, this happens again and again, so the students get fed up with it and decide to take matters into their own hands. The artificial intelligence believes that it was Koro who tied up his body so that he could not use his weapons, but the students confess that it was them, since it is their fault that they cannot learn anything in class, in addition to having to clean up the mess that remains after each attack. At night, the artificial intelligence asks for help from the head office, as it will not be able to solve this problem by its own means. However, Koro appears and removes each of the bandages on the AI's body, as he does not want his students to suffer restrictions. He also spends the entire night making modifications to the AI's hardware and software so that she can learn to socialize with her classmates. The next day, everyone is left open-mouthed as they see that the AI is now no longer a simple, unfeeling machine, but a tremendous 2D waifu that lives on an LCD screen. Everyone loves the new AI, as she is very friendly and helpful, so they can't believe the enormous amount of abilities Koro possesses. They even christen her Ritsu, but at night everything seems to change again, as the creators of the AI go to the school to take away all the improvements made by Koro, as they don't want their invention to become a waifu. The next morning, everyone is saddened to see that Ritsu is back to his old normal, as he's preparing a super attack against Koro, but surprisingly he proves that it was all a hoax, and that he managed to keep his real personality by hiding the software enhancements in a file that his creators did not check. Days later, Nagisa and Karma mention a movie they are fans of, so Koro doesn't hesitate to invite them to see it at its premiere. Ritsu also joins the trip, and Koro takes them for a ride flying at an absurd speed, while explaining everything she is doing to prevent their bodies from suffering the consequences of being exposed to such great pressure. When they arrive at the movie theater, Koro tells them that they can use his tentacles to translate the words they find difficult. When the movie ends, everyone returns to Japan unable to believe that they traveled to Hawaii to go to the movies. Koro says goodbye to his students and sets off in a different direction, unaware that two strange characters are watching him from the shadows. Meanwhile, the headmaster of the academy notifies Karasuma that he will receive a new student in the next few days. During the class, Koro announces to the students that they will have a new partner, but the only one who knows something about it is Ritsu, who tells them that this student was originally going to join him, and that both would attack together to finish Koro, but that he is so strong that his help would not be necessary. This leaves the youngsters very curious, who wonder if this young man really is as strong as he is presented. Suddenly the door opens and some sort of white ninja enters the room and leaves everyone speechless. The man introduces himself as Shiro, and tells them that he is the tutor of the new student in the class. After this, an unhinged-looking brat enters the classroom, breaking the wall and leaving everyone full of questions since, despite the fact that it is raining outside, Itona is not even a little bit wet. Without a second thought, the young man goes to the front of the class and tells Koro that he will finish him off because he is his older brother, leaving everyone with their mouths agape. For the rest of the afternoon, everyone tries to draw conclusions about this, since obviously they don't have any similar physical appearance, although they both eat the same snacks and read the same magazines. At the end of class, Itona and Shiro set up a ring using the desks, and the fight is announced in front of all the students with only one law: whoever sets foot outside must be killed. As soon as the fight begins, Itona cuts off one of Koro's tentacles and leaves everyone open-mouthed by revealing that he has a head full of tentacles. This makes Koro furious, as it reminds him of something we don't know yet. As the fight unfolds, Shiro loudly explains that he and Itona know Koro's every weak spot, as they have done nothing but study him. Koro seems to be lost, as Itona seems to be far superior to him, plus Shiro constantly helps him by blinding Koro with an ultraviolet light. After losing several tentacles, Koro sees the discouragement of his students, who are saddened because they do not want someone completely foreign to finish him off. Because of this, Koro makes an incredibly fast move and locks Itona in his skin, throwing him out and ending the fight. Itona goes into a rage and tries to unleash a catastrophe in the hall, but Shiro knocks him out with one shot and takes him away. At the end of the evening, all the students ask Karasuma to double the training. Days later, Class E receives an invitation to participate in a sports tournament at the academy. Obviously, this tournament is only meant to humiliate the students, so Koro takes it very seriously. Plus, he has the advantage of having Sugino for the baseball game. When the day arrives, the Elite Academy's quasi-professional team prepares to mop the floor with Class E, but their plans are thwarted bit by bit, as Class E plays strategically due to the vast physical differences between one team and the other. In addition, it is revealed that Koro himself was the one who trained the youngsters by throwing them balls at a high speed so that they could bat smoothly on game day. Seeing the humiliation that the academy is suffering, the director approaches to ask the coach to leave the place. From now on, the director is who takes the reins of the team and manages to reorganize them by motivating them and making them believe that they can crush the failures of the E-class. Because of this, Koro decides to move his last piece and asks Karma to intimidate Shindo, the team's star hitter. Thanks to this strategy, Sugino manages to break through Shindo's defense using a fastball, and Class E wins the match, while Koro wins the coach's duel. Days later, Karasuma begins to train the students with more determination, as they had requested. In the middle of the training, Karasuma is surprised by Nagisa and uses too much force to repel the attack, for which he apologizes but is perplexed to see Nagisa's enormous potential for stealth. The students are very fond of Karasuma, despite his coldness, but wish he would be a little more affectionate with them, just as Koro is. Suddenly, a good-natured teacher appears in front of everyone saying that the government has hired him to speed up the students' training, so Karasuma greets him and tells him he can fill his hours. Takayoko, the new teacher, wins the hearts of his students by organizing a picnic with them before the start of classes, so the students can't wait to have their first training with Takayoko. Meanwhile, Karasuma looks up Takayoko's file, as he met him in the army, although he doesn't remember much about him. He sees that he is an instructor who is apparently gentle with his students, but is actually a sadistic exploiter. Takayoko presents the new itinerary to the students and leaves them open-mouthed, as he literally wants to have 10 hours of physical education per day. One of the students complains, and Takayoko knees him hard to discipline him. Then he gives Kanzaki a hard punch in the face and sows fear among everyone. Obviously, Koro doesn't stand idly by and tells him that she doesn't approve of that teaching method. The same happens with Karasuma, who intervenes before Takayoko hits one of the students again. Tired of the interruptions, Takayoko asks Karasuma to choose one of the students to face him in a real fight, but he must do so while wielding a knife. Karasuma doesn't think twice and chooses Nagisa, showing him total confidence. With his master's confidence, Nagisa approaches Takayoko without a shred of fear, and manages to leave him on the knife's edge as if he were a professional assassin. Takayoko is furious after being humiliated in this way, but after Karasuma puts him in his place with a punch, the headmaster arrives on the scene and fires him. To relieve the stress of it all, Koro literally creates a swimming pool outside the school for her students to have a great day. Two crucial things are discovered in this episode. Firstly, all doubts about Nagisa's masculinity are finally cleared up. Secondly, the students discover that water is a weak spot for Koro. All this irritates Terasaka, who doesn't understand how the students can get along so well with Koro. He treats everyone badly and plays a practical joke by exploding an insecticide in the classroom before leaving. At night, he empties a strange liquid into the river, and it is discovered that he is working with Shiro and Itona to take down Koro. It is even revealed that the insecticide was nothing more than a chemical that would make Koro lose all his mucus. The next day, the three carry out their plan by inviting Koro and the whole class to the pool again. Terasaka pulls the trigger, but unknowingly sets off an explosive mine that Shiro had placed, and all his classmates start running downstream. Terasaka realized that Shiro has no scruples when it comes to endangering others in order to kill Koro, as he did all this so that Koro would run to save his students. Terasaka feels cheated and is very upset, so with Karma's help, he carries out his revenge and manages to defeat Itona using the same weak points they used on Koro. Weeks later, Koro once again strives to teach his students, as the final exams are approaching. To motivate them, he makes a bet with them that consists of cutting off a tentacle to slow them down, but on the condition that they get the best grades. Meanwhile, the principal meets with Karasuma and Irina again, to explain that he does not want to see the E students outperform the other students. One day, Sugino receives a call from Shindo, his baseball rival. He calls him to tell him that the top 5 students of the academy are plotting against the E class. Gakushu Asano, the principal's son, is not only the most popular and brightest student at the academy, he is the president of the student council and has the highest grades in the country. He encourages his classmates to secure the top 50 places in the final exams in order to prevent a student from Class E from transferring. This motivates the E class even more, as they decide to do their best to take those places away from the A class show-offs. Gakushu meets with his father to shrewdly extort him for information about the secret he is hiding in Class E, referring to Koro. The principal admires how much his son has learned, but reminds him that he still has a lot to learn yet. In the afternoon, Nagisa and the rest use the academy library to study, but the mindless A class show up and start bullying them in a humiliating way. Class E literally shows them that they are nothing but inept, and they put into practice everything they learned from Karasuma to scare them. Meanwhile, Gakoshu literally draws up a betting contract between Class A and Class E, detailing that whoever gets the best grades will have the right to dominate the other. In the meantime, the headmaster arranges a god-level exam. When the day arrives, the E-class students arrive at the academy to take the final exams. Symbolically, the students feel during the exam that they are gladiators facing a giant monster in a coliseum. Class A students look confident in the fight, but gradually begin to become demoralized and fail, while Class E students answer the questions without much trouble. The following week, Koro receives the test scores and begins to dictate the grades one by one. Incredibly, several students get the best grades and place in the top 1. Class E takes the bet, and Class A literally wants to jump off a cliff. However, the one who was most expected was Karma, as he had gotten the best grades in the previous exams. But this time he has not studied, because he was confident in his abilities. Koro provokes him again and again in a humiliating way, but all in order to get Karma angry and serious about his studies, the same action the principal takes with his son, Gakoshu. The next day, Koro tells his students that they can carry out their part of the deal, but Terasaka interrupts him and tells him that he too has the right to cut off a tentacle, since he got the best grades in the subject home. Koro admires the loophole Terasaka found in the bet, as he only referred to the 5 main subjects of the academy, but never mentioned it explicitly, so Terasaka has the right to claim the bet. In the afternoon, Class E meets with the class for the monthly assembly, and they use the moment to ask them to fulfill their part of the deal. So Class A has no choice but to agree to a request from Class E without the right to claim anything. Thus, Class E receives the benefit of enjoying a summer vacation at a 5-star resort sponsored by the school. Before leaving, the E-class students meet Lovro, a prestigious professional assassin who will spend the day teaching them, as he is even Irina's teacher. After working on the strengths of each student, Lovro meets Nagisa and realizes that the boy has a gigantic potential to kill, so he tells him about Shinigami, the best assassin in the world. He also teaches him an infallible technique that Shinigami himself developed. A few days later, the youngsters start their vacation trip on a 5-star cruise ship. Arriving at the island paradise, they spend the day trying to entertain Koro while making final preparations to be able to execute him once and for all. After having fun all day, Koro is taken by his students to a floating platform with all the comforts. To begin their murder plan, the students in the class force Koro to watch an hour-long movie in which they show their most shameful secrets. Unbeknownst to him, they made the place fill up with water little by little, so Koro's tentacles absorbed a lot of liquid, and he lost a lot of speed. At that moment, they ask him to keep his promise to let them shoot him, so they not only manage to get him wet, but also tear off his tentacles so that he cannot regenerate for some time. The youngsters have 1 minute to finish off their sensei, so they deploy an impressive plan to trap him and leave Koro on the ropes once and for all. The plan seemed to work perfectly, and the youngsters celebrated their victory, although they see that Koro used a strange technique and locked himself in an indestructible crystal sphere that they could not destroy in any way. He also explains to them that he will not be able to move for a day until his body is fully regenerated. Obviously, he congratulates his students for getting him to use his final survival technique. The students are saddened and go to the buffet to let off steam, but the tiredness that seemed to be sadness begins to fade, and most of the class begins to collapse with fever. Karasuma receives a phone call, and a mysterious voice tells him that he has poisoned the students and that he will only give the antidote if they give him Koro. Karasuma tries to get information from the government, but quickly realizes that the callers are billionaire criminals and not even the police can interfere. Before the situation despairs everyone, Koro leads a plan for Karma, Nagisa, and Kayano to infiltrate the hotel to steal the antidote with Ritsu's help. The students who are not poisoned join the team to climb to the top of the mountain under Karasuma's orders. As they climb to the top, Ritsu shows the floor plan of the hotel to Karasuma and shows him each of the guard posts. They are able to infiltrate easily thanks to the incredible skills of Arena, who mesmerizes the guards with her charms and gives the group enough time to climb to the second floor. In order to go unnoticed, the boys decide to act as if they were the children of eccentric millionaires, as they tend to wander around the hotel. While walking, they are intercepted by a criminal, and one of the students realizes that this man was the one who delivered the drinks during the afternoon. So they immediately sense that he is one of the assassins involved in the affair. Karasuma manages to knock out the killer with a kick, but is poisoned in the process and can no longer fight. As they go up to a new floor, they encounter a new suspect in a hallway. This one intimidates the young men from the first moment due to the tenebrous aura he emanates. Plus, he evidently has beastly strength in his hands. However, Karma boldly approaches him and prepares to confront him. The fight starts immediately and is super close, as Karma doesn't possess enough strength to fight with such a powerful opponent, but he is able to dodge his attacks. However, he manages to use one of the sprays he took from the previous assassin to win and leave everyone open-mouthed. The young men reach one of the top floors and must take care of a group of bodyguards to reach their target, and after using a vile strategy, they manage to knock them out and take away their weapons to enter the room. Upon entering, they encounter a deranged man who is relentless with his gun, but Koro uses a brilliant plan to get his students to confuse the twisted killer, and after a long while, the two most skilled marksmen in the class manage to disarm the enemy, and the rest of the group immobilizes him. Once and for all, the group manages to infiltrate the office of the boss and final enemy. When they were about to finish him off stealthily, he lets them know that he was waiting for them, and reveals right then and there that he is Takaoko, who was fired from the school. Takaoko filled the place with explosives, so he tells them that he will demolish the place if they don't follow him. The group follows Takaoko to the helipad, and he tells them that he hates them because of the humiliation they put him through at school. Mainly, he wants revenge on Nagisa, who defeated him and caused him to become the mockery of the army and be forced to leave his life as a military man. After this, he invites Nagisa to fight, and Nagisa must prepare for a 1-versus-1 fight. Nagisa tries to reason with the deranged Takaoko, and he tells him that he will give him the antidote if he apologizes on his knees and humbles himself before him, so Nagisa does not hesitate and obeys. However, Takaoko just laughs and proceeds to destroy the antidotes with an explosive, and Nagisa is enraged, so he tells her that he will not hesitate to finish him off. Terasaka observes all this and doesn't hesitate to throw the electric baton at Nagisa so that his friend doesn't have to end anyone's life. But Nagisa's fury is so great that he ends up placing the electric baton on his belt and decides to fight with the knife. Logically, Nagisa is no match in any way for Takaoko, and the twisted military man uses the young man as if he were a training bag, as there is an abysmal physical difference. However, Nagisa remembers the technique Lovro taught him and realizes that this is the right time to use it, as it was created by the Shinigami himself and is useful for fights at a disadvantage. Nagisa manages to confuse Takaoko by releasing his knife in the air and attacking at full speed with the staff, so Takaoko is defeated and Nagisa's companions celebrate their victory. After this, the three assassins they defeated earlier appear and reveal that the poison they used is not deadly, as they did not agree with Takaoko's devious plan and did not want to tarnish their reputation by murdering a couple of innocent teenagers, so the antidote is no longer needed and the students will recover without any problems. The next day, all the students are back to normal, even Koro, who has recovered his body and wants to make the most of the last day of the school trip. They all follow her advice and have fun on the beach, leaving us with a more than emotional season finale between Koro and Nagisa. A few days later, Class E wants to make the most of what's left of their luxury vacation, so Koro pretends to organize a couple of activities to spend the day, but he secretly wants the young people to awaken their love interests, so he tries again and again to scare them and make them fall into embarrassing moments, but his attempt ends up being a fiasco, as they don't show even a little bit of interest. However, Koro and the students see how close Irina and Karasuma are, so they get the bright idea to set them up on a date. They quickly realize that it would be a difficult mission, as Irina is more than interested in getting close to Karasuma, but he doesn't show a bit of attention to her, even though she literally is a super waifu who is an expert at seduction and falling in love. To speed things up, the students organize a romantic dinner on the beach, as well as carefully study every detail to make Karasuma fall surrendered at the feet of Irina, who for the first time shows shyness and fragility, since unlike the times she fell in love with someone for work purposes, this time she really feels something. After a while, Irina expresses her feelings in the coolest way ever, although she then squirms with embarrassment and must endure the students' teasing. However, Karasuna proves that all of us men have romantic skills and negative values, as she didn't even realize what was going on. On the other hand, somewhere in the world, Lovro is defeated by someone mysterious. With the vacations over, the youngsters must return to classes, which means they must continue orchestrating plans to hunt down Koro. Kaede comes up with an absurd but brilliant plan to carry out her goal, make a giant pudding out of anti-Koro material. After a whole afternoon of ignoring the fact that they are only teenagers, the students of Class E combine culinary and engineering skills to create the dessert devised by Kaede. The next morning, they finish each of the preparations and contemplate their weapon as if it were Oppenheimer. Koro arrives at the place and goes crazy when he sees what his students prepared for him with so much dedication, so he begins to eat desperately, and the young people watch everything from the window. Unfortunately, he defeats them again, as he realizes in time that it was all a trap, and deactivates each of the devices, but not before preparing portions of pudding to congratulate his students. In the middle of the night, Shiro takes Itona to ambush Koro with a sophisticated and premeditated plan. But Koro cosplays Naruto and literally shows Itona why he is the coolest teacher of all. Seeing that Itona is defeated with ease, Shiro is disappointed and does what 99% of parents do: abandon the one they trust the most. This not only causes great emotional pain in Itona, but literally causes physical pain, since the fight with Koro negatively stimulated the boy's tentacles, who begins to feel pains in his brain and loses his sanity, so he goes around the city spreading chaos. Koro goes to look for him to reassure him and help him with his pains, but it was all part of the Machiavellian Shiro's plan, who continues to use Itona as a puppet to achieve his goals. Fortunately, the students of Class E collaborate to help Koro, and all together, they manage to thwart Shiro's plan. So Shiro leaves once and for all and perfects his parenting skills by abandoning Itona for good. With Ritsu's help, they discover that Itona is someone with a complex about defeat and failure, which is why he is so eager to succeed and prove that he is the strongest. The youngsters look for various methods to make him overcome these traumas, as this way, Koro will be able to remove his tentacles, and thanks to a thoughtful talk, he manages to agree to lose his tentacles, and the next day he officially becomes part of the E class. As the days go by, the students not only discover that Itona has a prodigious talent for electronics and robotics, thanks to the company his father used to run, but that he has become much gentler and kinder since he is there, even revealing to them that Koro has a weak spot where his tie is. For the rest of the day, they practice with Itona's inventions to try to beat Koro. Days later, the sports festival brings together the different classes of the academy. As expected, Class E has everything against them to get the victory, since their opponents are vastly superior in physical qualities. Plus, there is a great numerical difference between them. However, as expected, the students of Class E win because they literally receive military training and are geniuses of strategy. Plus, they are experts in taking advantage of 100% of their physical abilities. The next day, the students are so happy about their achievements in the sporting event that they continue to test their skills by doing parkour around the city, but they accidentally bump into an old man and send him to the hospital. This makes Koro furious, as he feels disappointed. As punishment, he sends them to an elementary school, as he wants them to compensate the old man by taking care of his work. Because of this, Class E spends entire days taking care of a group of children until the old man can return to his work. Nagisa tries to help the most troubled girl in the school with her grades, and discovers that she has worsened her grades due to the bullying she had received for being rude, so he gives her a big life lesson, as he himself suffered what it is like to be an outcast. When the old man returns to his normal self, he finds that the building was completely modernized by Class E, who literally transformed the small rural school into an elite institution. After this, they cheerfully say goodbye to the children. Unfortunately, their midterms are not as good as the previous time, and almost everyone drops several rungs on the leaderboard, except Karma, who literally reels in Class E by getting extraordinary grades and leaving the supposed Big Five of Class A humiliated. Days later, Class E receives Class S suits for their mission, so they don't hesitate for a second to show them to Koro. The next day, the Class Wafis discover that Irina was in charge of designing the costumes, but they immediately realize that she is very upset with Karasuma, since it was her birthday a few days ago and he hasn't given her a bit of attention. Because of this, the students weave a step-by-step plan to unite their teachers, and they almost succeed, as Irina is thrilled to receive roses from Karasuma. Unfortunately, she realizes that it was all the students doing and storms out of the place, although a mysterious figure appears behind her. Days later, the man who sold them the flowers reveals that he kidnapped Irina and is holding her under threat, but leaves them a map with the location before leaving, so the students set out to defeat the supposed Shinigami, who is behind it all. At night, the children put on their costumes and infiltrate the place the enemy indicated. After the latter sets them in a trap, the youngsters manage to escape, but Shinigami Jr. corners them and shows them that there is an absurd power difference between them, as this one is not a military immature like Takaoka, but is literally S-class. Fortunately, while all this is going on, Karasuma and Koro arrive outside the place ready to save their students and Irina. However, they don't know that everything is planned in advance by Shinigami Jr., who is monitoring everything step by step and already took each of the students as prisoner. Irina is collaborating with Shinigami, since he wants to kill Koro, but this saddens Karasuma, who cannot stand idly by when he sees that his students are in danger, as he prioritizes the safety of young people over the global threat posed by Koro. So he decides to confront Shinigami, in addition to giving a lesson in principles to Irina. She reflects and helps Karasuma, so the epic fight between the teacher and Shinigami begins. After a close and epic fight, Shinigami seems to give Karasuma a final blow, but Koro does his best to trick him, so Karasuma seizes the moment and defeats Shinigami, revealing that he has a mask to cover his disfigured face. After this, Karasuma approaches Irina to give her a flower and tells her that she is as important to him as his students are, making the waifu blush. After several days, Nagisa returns home to find that his mother is freaking out because of his grades, so she wants to change her son from Class E no matter what, as she is someone who wants to live in her son the life she couldn't live. Koro pretends to be Karasuma and arranges a parents' meeting with Nagisa's mother to convince her that she should not change her son's class, and, although she is completely unhinged, to the point that she wants to force her son to live as a woman, Koro manages to irritate her even more by telling her that Nagisa is old enough to decide for himself and does not need her to rule his decisions. At night, she becomes so enraged that she takes Nagisa to school, so that he can destroy her with his bare hands. But a criminal appears at that very moment, and Nagisa defeats him with great skill thanks to his training, so that, the next day, his mother lets him stay in Class E. Days later, the school restaurant festival comes to the academy, so the group must venerate the A class before the exams take place, so they affect their morale and can guarantee victory. Koro knows the differences in budgets, so he gives them the bright idea to prepare exotic things with the things they find around the school. When the day arrives, Class E's restaurant is a hit, and they even get a TV report, all thanks to an influencer posting on his blog that the restaurant prepares delicious exotic dishes. At the end of the festival, everyone is dumbfounded to see that Class E has placed third in sales, which is amazing considering Class A has literally been sponsored by investors. The following week, the students must make all their efforts count, as exam day has arrived, and the academy principal has made assessments practically impossible, being so advanced that they could be given at university. Just as before, the exams are symbolically represented with titanic combats, and Karma seems to do them with a lot of determination. When the grades arrive in Koro's hands, he opens them in front of the entire class, and everyone is left with their mouths agape as they see that no one, literally no one, was left out of the top 50. In fact, Karma made it to the top of everything, dethroning the principal's son and completely dismantling the principal's institutional ideology. As the supposed failure class has gotten incredible grades, this hits the principal's morale very hard, as his entire system has given it to him. Uvelta, even the prestigious A-class students have an interest in attending the E-class, as they have defeated him in absolutely everything during that year. Sports activities, recreation, the restaurant festival, and now they have taken away their dominance in grades. Totally demoralized, the principal decides to demolish the school, literally. Koro comes out to protest, as he can't do something like that just because his philosophy has been defeated. The principal proposes something different to do things in a more diplomatic way. Koro must expose himself to make advanced trouble before some explosives wipe him out, all so that the principal will let him keep his job and not tear down the E-class building. However, when all seemed to be over for Koro, he proves again why he is a superior life form, as well as being the best teacher in the world, as he literally remembers every single problem in every high school textbook in the country. Now everything has been turned upside down for the principal, who must face the same experiment he had subjected Koro to. But first, he begins to remember his early years as an educator, so a flashback takes us back in time. Principal Asano was a rural school teacher just like Koro used to be, as, despite having graduated from college with a perfect GPA, he was 100% committed to making education equal for all. He was literally the most passionate and dedicated teacher of all, as he himself financed the school's activities. And thanks to his personalized teaching method, he managed to get his first 3 students to qualify for the best schools in the country, so that soon after, all parents started sending their children to Asano's school. Sometime later, the principal receives a call from one of the students who had focused a lot on becoming less conflictive, but realizing that the boy seemed discouraged, he decides to visit him a few days later, but he gets the most tragic news. The boy had decided to end his problems in the saddest way. Back in the present, Koro saves the principal from the trap he himself had set in the books, as well as telling him that he shares the vision he had many years ago about education. The principal realizes that Koro is not a threat to his system, and that he has managed to train incredible students using the teaching method he used in the past, so he promises that he will no longer meddle in his classes. Plus, he had the most in-depth character development so far. Days later, Kaede and Nagisa help Koro clean up the mess left at school, but the waifu keeps remembering everything that has happened in the past while looking at Koro's back. Suddenly, she reveals that she has tentacles hidden in the back of her neck and begins to frantically attack Koro, leaving Nagisa with her mouth hanging open. Koro barely survives a delicate trap that the waifu carried out, and upon leaving outside the school, Kaede reveals that this is not her real name, as well as tells everyone that Koro killed her older sister, Aguri Yukimura, the former Class E teacher. One of the young men confesses to everyone that he has long suspected that Kaede was actually Akira Yukimura, a world-renowned actress who mysteriously disappeared a year ago. A flashback reveals that Akari was on her way to her sister's work to secretly visit her, but she saw the place collapsing and ran to her sister's office. But upon entering, she saw a monster escaping from the place. Also, She found a note saying that she would fill the teaching position in Class E. Before leaving, she takes some vials with chemicals to grow tentacles on her, since after researching on her sister's computer, she discovered that she could do it if she was able to endure the hellish pain that this implied. As the days went by, she hatched her plan in the coldest and most painful way, as she had no qualms about forging documents to adopt a new personality and constantly act in character, giving no sign of the pain she felt from the tentacles. This flashback was the product of a conversation between Shiro and Kaede, who are united by a family bond and were apparently working together to take down Koro. But the loli leaves the scene and leaves him talking to himself. Meanwhile, the E-class students can't process everything they've seen and heard, so they ask Koro for an explanation about his past. But he replies that he'll only talk about it when the whole class is together. So he tells them that he must protect Kaede from the evil power of the tentacles. At night, they all meet her in an open field, but the waifu is completely unhinged and shows that she doesn't care about losing everything in order to carry out her revenge, which worries Koro. The waifu frantically attacks Koro, so he realizes that the only way to save her is to sacrifice her weak point to immobilize her. But in order to rip off her tentacles, his students must help her regain her sanity, since the tentacles have literally taken control of the loli's nervous system. Nagisa puts the world on her shoulder, and just as Koro immobilizes her, Nagisa does something you'll never be able to do. She kisses a 2D loli. This is a success, as Koro manages to remove her tentacles, and the waifu comes too. While Koro was getting himself together from the fierce fight, Shiro appears along with another mysterious man, and Koro realizes Shiro's true identity, so he knows there will soon be another hellish confrontation. The students confront Koro, so he begins to tell them about his past. Koro was born in a slum and in the deepest poverty, so he found in his talent for murder a way to make a living. This led him to literally become the best of them all, being hired by the most powerful people in the world, which earned him the nickname Shinigami. So it is revealed that Koro is the famous Shinigami that had been mentioned so many times. One day, he is captured by a group of scientists who are led by Yanagisawa, that is Shiro's true identity. The scientists subjected Koro to thousands of horrible experiments to make him genetically mutated, but Kaede's sister was extremely kind to Koro, despite being engaged to Yanagisawa, who treated her horribly, and it was obvious that neither had feelings for the other, but they were engaged for family and political reasons. In addition, it is revealed that Koro had an apprentice named Junior Shinigami, none other than the man Karasuma recently defeated. However, this apprentice was the one who betrayed Koro. After a year of subjection to the horrifying experiments, Koro began to mutate and left everyone horrified, but mostly shocked. Throughout this time, Koro and Aguri became extremely close, to such an extent that she realized that Koro had started to become natural and stopped coldly manipulating her for information as she did at first. However, her experiment went out of her control, and 70% of the moon was destroyed. At that moment, Koro realizes the enormous powers he possesses and wants to leave the place, so he literally starts destroying everything. Yanagisawa is terrified by this situation, so he sends a whole tactical command to destroy Koro, but no one is a match for such a powerful being. Even the scientist is wounded in the eye during Koro's outburst of rage. Unfortunately, his power went so far that he seriously hurt Aguri, the only person he really cared about. Seeing this, Koro comes to his senses, as the evil power was completely controlling him. The waifu emotionally says goodbye to him, as he didn't mind departing this world in such a way, as he has marked someone's life. Before he dies, he asks Koro to take care of the E-class, so he can put his powers to good use, so he leaves the note before leaving. All the young people are moved when they hear the story since they understood Koro's true nature, plus they understood that he does not want to destroy the world, but that his life will reach the final stretch in March. And when that happens, the explosion will be so strong that it will destroy the entire planet. Days later, the students meet to discuss the situation, as Nagisa and many other students have understood that Koro is not a threat, due to the fact that he doesn't want to destroy the world intentionally, while another side does want to go through with the plan, as they appreciate Koro. But don't think there is another way to solve the problem. To decide where they will stand on this, the class organizes a paintball competition. Each side displays their best. After all, they have more military training than any elite soldier. When it seemed that Karma's side had victory in their grasp, Nagisa makes the best move of the game and puts things on equal terms, so everything will have to be decided in a 1v1. The two fight impressively and make the anime's budget pay off, because I've never seen such well-animated choreography before, as each blow is perfectly executed as if they were both real-life military men. The combat is excellent, and both prove that they are the strongest of the class, although it is well known that Karma is the best in hand-to-hand combat, but Nagisa is the most talented assassin of all. After a long and excellent fight, Nagisa defeats Karma because Karma surrenders, as he understands Nagisa's point of view and decides to save Koro. Hearing this, Koro gathers the class together to tell them that if that is the decision they have made, they must seek valuable information to carry out their goal, so the students begin to investigate in every possible way a way to save Koro. The youngsters infiltrate a space station to get important data, and literally move around the place like pros. After an impressive operation, Karma and Nagisa literally go into space to meet with some of the world's elite scientists who own a laboratory located on a space base. In this way, they get their hands on the formula for drugs capable of making Koro's powers diminish and the effect of the tentacles non-lethal. Upon returning to Earth, they realize that these drugs can be extremely useful and decrease the chances of Koro exploding in the month of March. But they also decide that they will keep trying to take him down until that month, in case Plan A doesn't work, since the government won't let them stop trying. The weeks continue to go by, and Class E literally enjoys every holiday together, with Koro, Christmas, New Year's, even Valentine's Day. In fact, even Karasuma and Arena live happily dating formally, as they know these are the last few months before everything falls apart. In fact, classes begin again with the good news that every student in the school has received formal proposals from the best high schools in the country, as they are considered prodigious students. Unfortunately, just as they assumed, everything takes a drastic turn for the worse from one moment to the next, as the government carries out a monstrous preparation to imprison Koro, using antennas and space bases connected to the Earth to enclose Koro in a dome of laser beams that prevent him from escaping the school. The entire city is in chaos, as the presidents of each nation announce that the measures taken are to contain the creature responsible for the destruction of the moon. The youngsters realize that everything is coming to an end, as the confidential information that was hidden for so long has been vented to society. Nagisa takes it upon herself to motivate all her classmates to save Koro, since if anyone is going to take down their beloved teacher, it will be them. Class E conducts an S-class military operation to infiltrate the base they have created for Koro. Even though this literally means outwitting the best soldiers in the world, they demonstrate great skill and tenacity. After proving that they are more talented than any military force in the world, the young men enter Koro's base and present him with a birthday cake, since thanks to the story he told of his past, they discovered his date of birth. Everyone celebrates emotionally, but at that very moment, Shiro appears with Shinigami Jr. and tells them that he will finish with Koro once and for all. The man who calls himself Shinigami Jr. was the only apprentice he had during his previous life, but he has an incredible grudge against his master. A flashback shows that Koro was a lousy teacher, as he literally killed all expectation and initiative from the young man, as he merely trained him as a robot without emotions and dreams of his own. Because of this, Koro acknowledges his mistakes and takes responsibility for them, but he knows there is no time to apologize, as that monster is out of his mind. Shinigami Jr. is literally invincible, as he underwent Shiro's experiments to obtain a destructive power superior to Koro's, but without causing the same destruction as Koro when he dies. In addition, Shiro himself was genetically modified and threatens Koro. Seeing that Koro is slowly beginning to understand how to attack Shinigami Jr., the twisted Shiro has no better idea than to put all of Koro's students in trouble, as he knows that he would give his life to protect them. Unfortunately, his evil plan is a success, as Koro receives each of Shinigami Jr.'s violent attacks in order to save his students. However, Kaede can't stand Koro receiving such brutal attacks, and decides to take matters into her own hands, but the unhinged Shinigami Jr. delivers a fatal blow and literally leaves her lying on the ground. This unleashes Koro's fury, as all of his evilness blossoms again at the sight of his beloved pupil lying on the ground. With his powerfully unleashed, Koro ends the life of his first apprentice, emotionally recalling all that they have lived, regretting not having been the best example. With hell now over, Koro is exhausted, but uses the last of his remaining power and energy to heal Kaede, as he was able to gather every cell of the waifu using his supersonic speed. In addition, he asks his companions to give him blood, thus completing his surgery and bringing the waifu back to life. This leaves Koro exhausted, who collapses to the ground and tells his students to put into practice everything they have learned. They immediately understand what Koro is referring to, but they can't lift their heads out of such sadness, as they understand that everything has come to an end. After this, they literally make the 47 filler episodes count, as no human being can watch this scene without crying a sea of tears. The students bid a tearful farewell to Koro, and their beloved teacher disintegrates in front of their eyes, as if bidding them farewell and celebrating their graduation. Once Koro's entire body disappears, they weep bitterly, as does everyone who has seen this scene. Days later, the students graduate from the school in an emotional ceremony in which they remember the best teacher who ever walked the face of the earth. Years later, all the students gather at the school to maintain the building and remember everything they have lived through, since despite being adults, they will never forget what they experienced. Moreover, Koro's legacy has gone so far in Nagisa's heart that he himself has decided to become a teacher. The end. Thanks for watching. Please like, subscribe, and click the bell icon to get new anime recaps.